So Reddit, buckle up, because I need to get this off my chest and I genuinely want to know if I handled this correctly or if I'm the worst person alive. Spoiler, I don't actually care if I'm the worst person alive at this point. I'm Ian, 32, and until about 6 weeks ago, I was engaged to Juliana, 29. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months. I want to start by saying I genuinely loved this woman, built my entire future around her. And I'm going to be completely honest here because what's the point otherwise? There were red flags. So many red flags that I ignored because I was stupid and in love and convinced myself that people could change. Juliana came from money, not crazy rich, but her parents, Norman and Ellen, owned a successful import business, and she grew up in a 4-bedroom house with a pool. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom after my dad left when I was 9. Different worlds, right? But we met at a mutual friend's birthday party 3 years ago, and I thought we clicked. She was funny, charming, gorgeous. What I didn't realize until we were already 6 months deep was that she saw me as a project, and I mean that literally. She would introduce me to her friends and family with this little smile and say things like, "Oh, Ian didn't go to college, but he's so naturally smart." Or Ian's apartment is small, but it's in a nice neighborhood. Or Ian doesn't make much, but he's ambitious. Always qualifying me. Always explaining away my existence like I was something that needed defending. Her mother, Ellen, was the worst about it. Constantly asking when I was going to get a real job. I work in logistics management and make decent money, thanks. When I was going to move us to a better apartment, when I was going to start dressing like someone who deserves her daughter. But here's the thing they didn't know. The apartment I live in, I own it. Bought it at 26 after saving for years. The car I drive, paid off. I have zero debt, a solid retirement account, and I've been quietly building equity while Juliana was maxing out credit cards her parents kept bailing her out of. But I never corrected them, because honestly, I wanted to see who I was really dealing with. Call it a test, call it me being paranoid. I just knew something felt off and I wanted to wait before I showed all my cards. The dog thing is important too. Bruno is a 3-year-old French bulldog that I got as a puppy, a year before I even met Juliana. He's registered in my name. All his vet records, microchip, everything. ME. Juliana moved into my apartment 8 months into our relationship and basically adopted Bruno as hers because he's adorable and photogenic and looked good on her Instagram. Fine, whatever. I thought she loved him too. Now the watch. My grandfather passed away when I was 15. He was the only father figure I really had after my dad disappeared. He left me exactly one thing, a 1965 vintage watch that he wore every single day of his adult life. Not worth a fortune or anything, maybe $3,000 or $4,000, but it was mine. It was the only thing I had left of him. Juliana knew this. She knew the entire story because I told her on our third date when she asked about the watch I was wearing. I remember her looking at it and saying it looked old. And I explained everything. And she nodded and moved on. I should have noticed she didn't ask any follow-up questions. She didn't care. Fast forward to 6 weeks ago. Juliana gets a call from her mother Ellen saying that her grandmother in Italy, her dad Norman's mother, was sick and might not make it. Juliana was devastated, crying, immediately booking a flight. I offered to come with her, but she said no. Family only. Her parents wanted it to be just them and her. Okay, I understood. I helped her pack, drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye. First 2 days, normal texts. Missing you, grandma's stable, Italy is beautiful, wish you were here. Standard stuff. Then, on day 3, nothing. No texts, no calls. I messaged her asking if everything was okay. Seen, no reply. Messaged again that night. Seen, no reply. I told myself she was dealing with family stuff, her grandmother was probably dying. Give her space. Day 4. Middle of the afternoon, I'm at work going over shipping manifests when my phone buzzes. It's a text from Juliana. And read it. I genuinely wish I was making this up because it would mean this isn't my actual life. She wrote, "Ran into my first love, Frederick, who actually became something. Unlike you, he owns 3 restaurants and a vineyard. I'm staying in Tuscany forever. You can keep the ring. It was cheap anyway. LOL. BTW, I took Bruno too. He deserves a backyard, not your depressing apartment. Sold your grandfather's watch for my flight home. Hope you don't mind." Attached was a photo. Juliana on a vineyard terrace, glass of wine in hand, wearing my grandfather's watch on her wrist. And there was Bruno, my dog, sitting in the lap of some guy I'd never seen before. Frederick, I assumed. The man who owns 3 restaurants and a vineyard. The man who is apparently everything I'm not. I stared at that photo for maybe 2 full minutes. Then you know what I did? I smiled. I actually smiled. Because the thing is, I'd been waiting for this. Not this exactly, but something. Some moment where Juliana finally showed me who she really was. Where she confirmed every single suspicion I'd been building for 3 years. Where she gave me permission to stop pretending. I didn't reply. Not a single word. I just screenshotted everything, saved the photo, and went back to work. Here's what Juliana didn't know when she sent that message. She didn't know that I'd quietly spoken to a lawyer friend 2 months ago about what happens to shared property if an engagement ends. She didn't know that I'd already moved every document with her name on it out of my apartment and into a safe deposit box. She didn't know that Bruno's microchip and registration were about to become very relevant. She didn't know that selling someone else's property without permission is called theft. And she definitely didn't know what was waiting for her when she eventually tried to come back. Because here's the thing about Juliana. She's impulsive. She acts first and thinks never. Her parents have spent her entire life cleaning up her messes, bailing her out, making problems disappear. She genuinely believes there are no consequences for her actions because there never have been. 4 days of silence. 4 days of her probably living her best life with Frederick and his vineyard. Thinking I was sitting in my depressing apartment crying into Bruno's empty dog bed. 4 days of me making phone calls, gathering information, and preparing. Then on day 4, my phone started ringing, and it did not stop. 112 voicemails by the time I finally looked at my notifications. All from Juliana. All progressively more hysterical. But I'm going to save what those voicemails contained for my next update. Because honestly, I need to go for a walk and calm down before I relive that particular chaos. Just know that Frederick's 3 restaurants and vineyard, not exactly what they seemed, and Juliana's perfect Italian escape, it fell apart faster than our engagement. More soon. I promise you want to hear what happened next. 3 years of Ian doesn't make much but, and Ian's apartment is small but. This man existed as a sentence that always needed a conjunction to be acceptable. Meanwhile, she's got credit card debt her parents keep mopping up like she's leaving a trail of financial disasters behind her like breadcrumbs. The audacity of a family looking down on someone who owns property outright, while their daughter treats daddy's bank account like an unlimited lives cheat code. And that breakup text. She typed, "Sold your grandfather's watch for my flight home," and hit send like that was a normal thing to communicate. Like she was telling him she borrowed his phone charger. She's wearing it in the photo. She hasn't even sold it yet. She's just posing with stolen property like it's a fashion accessory for her Tuscan wine girl personality she developed in 72 hours. But here's what gets me. This man screenshotted the breakup text and went back to shipping manifests. Because he'd already consulted a lawyer. He already moved documents to a safe deposit box. Ian was playing chess while Juliana thought they were playing Candyland. She really thought she was delivering this devastating blow, and he's over here like, finally, the documentation I've been preparing for is relevant. 112 voicemails incoming, and Frederick's empire is apparently not what it seems? Oh, I'm locked in. Update 1. All right, Reddit, I'm back. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Some of you asked really good questions that I'm going to try to address here. And yes, I listened to all 112 voicemails. Every single one. Took me almost 4 hours because some of them were over 3 minutes long. Let me walk you through this because honestly, watching Juliana's perfect little fantasy collapse in real time through voicemails was something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. Voicemails 1 through 8 were variations of the same thing. Ian, please call me back. Something happened. I need to talk to you. This isn't what it looks like. Standard damage control stuff. She sounded nervous, but not panicked yet. Like she was annoyed that I hadn't immediately started begging her to come home so she could reject me properly. Voicemails 9 through 20 is where things started getting interesting. Her tone shifted completely. She started explaining, and without me even asking, that Frederick wasn't exactly what she thought he was. Apparently, the 3 restaurants were actually 1 restaurant and 2 food trucks. The vineyard was his family's property that he had no actual ownership stake in because his older brother inherited everything. And the life she thought she was running away to? Frederick still lived with his parents at 34 because the restaurant wasn't profitable enough for him to move out. I'm not making this up. She told me all of this in voicemails like she expected me to feel sorry for her. Like she was the victim of some elaborate scam instead of, the person who abandoned her fiancé via text message and stole his dead grandfather's watch. Voicemails 21 through 40 got progressively more frantic. Frederick had apparently started asking her questions about when she was leaving. Turns out he thought she was just visiting for a few days, maybe a week. He did not sign up for some American woman abandoning her entire life to move into his parents' house in Tuscany. His mother was apparently furious about the whole situation and made it very clear that Juliana was not welcome to stay. And here's where it gets really good. Juliana's parents, Norman and Ellen, they were also in Italy, remember? For the sick grandmother who, by the way, was apparently not even that sick. Ellen had exaggerated the whole thing to get Juliana to come visit because the grandmother just wanted to see her granddaughter. So, Norman and Ellen were staying at a hotel in Florence and had absolutely no idea their daughter had sent me that text, or that she had been planning to leave me for some guy she dated in college. Until they found out. Voicemails 41 through 60 were mostly crying, full sobbing, can't breathe properly crying. Norman had somehow gotten access to her phone. She didn't explain how, but I assume he demanded to see why she was so upset. And he read our message thread, including the photo, including the part about selling my grandfather's watch, including the part about taking Bruno. Norman, for all his flaws and all the times he looked down on me, is apparently not a complete monster. He was furious with Juliana. Not at me, at her. Because here's the thing about Norman. He's old school. He doesn't believe in theft and he doesn't believe in humiliating people publicly. What Juliana did embarrassed him, made his family look trashy and cruel. And Norman cares about reputation more than almost anything else. Voicemails 61 through 80 were a complete mess. Juliana bouncing between apologizing to me, being angry at her parents for being angry at her, making excuses about how I made her do this because I never made her feel special enough, because I never proposed to her the right way, because I bought her a ring that was, and I'm quoting here, the same size as her coworker, Andrea's ring from her boyfriend who makes half what you do, Ian. So what does that say about how much you value me? That one I saved. That voicemail is going to be very useful later. Voicemails 81 through 100 were when reality finally started hitting her. She couldn't stay with Frederick. She couldn't stay with her parents because Norman wasn't speaking to her. She'd burned through most of her cash because she'd expected Frederick to be supporting her new Italian lifestyle. And here's the kicker. She hadn't actually sold my watch yet. She had taken it to a pawn shop in Florence, but they wouldn't buy it without documentation proving it was hers. She'd tried to sell it privately, but nobody wanted to pay what she was asking. So she still had it. My grandfather's watch was still in her possession, in Italy, and she was running out of options fast. The final 12 voicemails were pure desperation. She needed me to send her money for a flight home. She needed me to talk to her parents for her. She needed me to understand that this was all a mistake, and she never actually planned to leave me. She just got caught up in the romance of seeing Frederick again and the wine and the scenery, and she lost her head for a moment, but she loves me. She's always loved me. Please, Ian, just call me back. I didn't call her back. Instead, I spent those 4 days doing something much more productive. I contacted my lawyer friend Andrea, different Andrea than Juliana's coworker, a guy I went to high school with who now practices family law, and I asked him about the watch and about Bruno. The watch is straightforward. She took my property without permission with intent to sell. That's theft. I can file a police report. The fact that she's in another country complicates things but doesn't make it impossible. And Bruno, his microchip registration is in my name. His adoption papers are in my name. Every single vet bill for 3 years is in my name. Juliana has no legal claim to that dog whatsoever. But here's where I started thinking bigger. Because just getting my stuff back isn't enough. Just having Juliana come home humiliated and broke isn't enough. She spent 3 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Her parents spent 3 years treating me like I was beneath their daughter. And Juliana genuinely believed she could just discard me like I was nothing and face zero consequences. I want consequences. Real consequences. So I started making calls. First to my apartment building's management, officially removing Juliana from my lease as an approved occupant. Her keycard no longer works. Her mail is being forwarded to her parents' house. She has no legal right to enter my home. Then I contacted my bank and removed her as my emergency contact on all accounts. Changed all my passwords. Made sure there was no way she could access anything of mine remotely. But here's the big one. Juliana's parents have been paying the rent on a small commercial space for the past 2 years. Juliana's been running a little boutique, selling clothes, accessories, things she buys wholesale and marks up. It's never been profitable, but Norman keeps funding it because he wants his daughter to seem successful. That commercial space? It's in a building I happen to know the property manager of through my work in logistics. We've done shipping for his other properties. I haven't made any moves yet, but I'm gathering information. I'm finding out exactly how precarious Juliana's little business actually is, how much she owes vendors, how much her parents have been covering for her, because when she finally comes back, and she will come back, she has no choice. I want to be ready. I want her to understand that you don't get to destroy someone and then walk back into their life expecting forgiveness. She landed back in the States yesterday. Her father, Norman, bought her ticket because she had no money left. She texted me from the airport. 3 words, we need to talk. I'm going to let her wait a little longer before I respond. But when I do, Reddit, I promise you'll hear about it. More updates coming. This is far from over. 3 restaurants became 1 restaurant and 2 food trucks. The vineyard he owns? His brother's vineyard that he gets to walk around on like it's a petting zoo. Frederick is 34, living with his parents, and Juliana looked at this man and saw an upgrade from someone who owns property outright with 0 debt. She has the financial evaluation skills of a toddler picking the shiniest object in the room. The grandmother wasn't even that sick. Ellen manufactured a medical emergency because grandma wanted to see her granddaughter. This whole Italian disaster was built on a foundation of family theatrics, and Juliana just decided to add theft and abandonment to the itinerary as a personal touch. And she compared her engagement ring to her co-worker's ring, like she's running a spreadsheet at the office analyzing other people's relationships. Andrea's boyfriend makes half what Ian makes, but look at this rock. Girl, what catalog are you maintaining on everyone else's jewelry? But here's what kills me. She still had the watch because Italian pawn shops wanted documentation. Imagine trying to sell stolen property in a foreign country and being stopped by bureaucracy. The universe said, no, you're going to carry this evidence back across the Atlantic yourself. And now Ian's running Reconnaissance on her failing boutique through his logistics connections. The man who shuffles boxes is about to demonstrate exactly how many connections those boxes gave him. The "we need to talk" text is giving, I've realized I have no leverage, but I'm going to pretend I do. Update 2. Okay, Reddit. The confrontation finally happened, and I need to get this down while it's fresh. Quick Bruno update. Since people asked, Juliana couldn't get him back into the country. International pet travel requires paperwork, health certificates, things she didn't consider when she grabbed him. So my dog is currently stuck at Frederick's family house in Tuscany. I've started the process of getting him back, but it's going to take weeks and cost me money that I fully plan on recovering from Juliana. Now the confrontation. I made her wait 3 days after her airport text. Finally responded Thursday. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., park bench outside the library on 8th Street. Public place, neutral ground. She showed up looking terrible. First time in 3 years I'd seen her without perfect makeup. She started talking before she even sat down. I wasn't thinking clearly. Being back in Italy overwhelmed me. Seeing Frederick brought up old feelings. I got swept up in a fantasy that wasn't real. I never meant those things in the text. I was trying to convince myself leaving was right when I knew it wasn't. I let her spiral for 3 minutes. Excuses, justifications, half apologies that always circled back to how she was the victim. Frederick misrepresented himself. Her parents were being unfair. It was just a moment of weakness. Then I asked one question. Where's the watch, Juliana? She got quiet. Then admitted she didn't have it anymore. Turns out when Norman found out what she'd done, he confiscated it. He's holding it as collateral to make sure Juliana faces consequences. Norman texted me that morning. It was first time he's ever contacted me directly, saying he had the watch safe and we needed to discuss this man to man. So now Norman is inserting himself. Norman, who spent 3 years looking down on me, who funded every one of Juliana's failures, who raised a daughter who believed people were disposable. Now he wants to play peacemaker because family reputation is at stake. I told Juliana I wanted the watch within 24 hours or I was filing a police report. She cried, said I didn't understand. Her father was trying to help. He wanted a proper meeting so we could discuss this like adults. Move forward. Like there's any moving forward from this. I asked her about the boutique. Her face changed completely. She asked what her business had to do with anything. I told her I'd been talking to people, that I knew her commercial space was month to month because her parents stopped signing long-term leases, that I knew she owed money to 3 vendors, that her father had been threatening to cut her off for months. She asked how I knew all that. I told her I'd been paying attention for 3 years while she assumed I was too stupid to notice. That's when she got angry, started yelling that this was why she left, because I made her feel watched, like I was keeping score, just waiting for her to mess up. She said I never loved her. I just loved feeling superior, even though she came from a better family and was doing something with her life while I just shuffled boxes for a living. I let her finish, then told her the keycard was deactivated. Her belongings were boxed at her parents' house. The engagement was over, and I expected reimbursement for the ring, watch recovery costs, and getting Bruno back. She laughed, said I was delusional, thinking her parents would pay me anything when I was the one who drove her away. I asked why she stayed 3 years if I was so terrible, why she said yes to the proposal. Why she moved into my apartment and adopted my dog if I embarrassed her so much. No answer. Just kept saying nobody understood what it was like to be her. I told her to have Norman call me about the watch. Then, I left. Norman called that evening with an offer I didn't expect. A lump sum, $15,000. In exchange for the ring, dropping police report threats, and signing something saying I won't pursue claims against Juliana or the family. Making this go away cleanly. But I don't want this to go away cleanly. She humiliated me, stole from me, abandoned my dog in another country. Her family treated me like garbage for 3 years. $15,000 doesn't cover that debt. I told Norman I needed time to think, but what I'm actually doing is exploring my options with Andrea, because there might be a way to make this hurt the whole family. More soon. She took a dog to another country without knowing you need paperwork to bring it back. Bruno is just sitting in Frederick's mom's house in Tuscany, being an international incident, because Juliana thought pet ownership worked like carry-on luggage. And Norman confiscating the watch like his adult daughter is a teenager who got caught shoplifting. This family has never let her experience a single natural consequence, and they're still trying to manage her outcomes at 29. Norman wants to discuss this man to man, but where was that energy when his wife was asking Ian when he'd get a real job? You don't get to look down on someone for 3 years and then pivot to respect when your daughter makes you look bad. Nobody understands what it's like to be her, is the final defense of someone who has never been held accountable for anything. 3 years of Ian shuffles boxes, 3 years of being the charity case boyfriend, and when he finally shows he was paying attention, suddenly he's the problem for noticing. She's mad that he was keeping score. No, he was being a person with eyes and a functioning memory while she assumed he was too beneath her to be observant. $15,000 to make it disappear. That's exactly how Juliana became Juliana. Every problem in her life has had a price tag and a signature. Daddy just needs to know what number makes the embarrassment stop. But Ian isn't taking it. This man wants consequences. Final update. Reddit. It's done. And I need to tell you how this ended because some of you have been messaging me nonstop. I rejected Norman's $15,000 offer. But I didn't just reject it. I countered. I wanted $25,000. The watch returned immediately. Full reimbursement for Bruno's transport from Italy. And one more thing. Juliana admitting in writing exactly what she did. Not a vague apology. A detailed statement acknowledging she took my property, attempted to sell it, abandoned my dog, and sent that text intending to humiliate me. Signed and notarized. Norman laughed, said I was out of my mind, the $15,000 was generous, take it or he withdraws entirely. So I told him about the voicemails, specifically voicemail 73, the one where Juliana admitted her parents covered her boutique losses for 2 years, where she said Norman threatened to cut her off 3 times, but Ellen always convinced him to keep paying, where she listed exactly how much she owed vendors and to whom. I told Norman I'd saved all 112 voicemails, and his daughter's vendors, the ones she owed money to, would probably be very interested to know Norman had been secretly funding a business he kept telling them was independently profitable. Norman got very quiet. Reputation is everything to him. His import business runs on trust and relationships. If word got out he'd been propping up his daughter's failing business while she lied to vendors, that wouldn't just hurt Juliana. That would hurt him. I made it clear that if Juliana's vendors came asking me questions, and they might, since I was the fiancé for 3 years, I wouldn't lie for her, or for him. Norman agreed to my terms within 48 hours. The watch came first. Norman drove it to my apartment himself, handed it over in the parking garage without a word. Just this looked like I was something unpleasant he'd stepped in. I didn't care. I had my grandfather's watch back. Bruno took 3 more weeks along. Paperwork, vet checks, transport. But he's home now, sleeping on my couch as I type this. Frederick's family was relieved to get rid of a dog they never asked for. The money came through wire transfer. $25,000. Norman made me sign a receipt confirming the amount and agreeing not to pursue further legal action. I signed happily. I never wanted legal action. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted them to pay for what they did. Then Juliana's statement. She fought until the end, telling Norman I was manipulating everyone, that this proved I'd always been controlling. Ellen sided with her, calling it excessive and cruel. But Norman held firm. He told Juliana she could sign or he was cutting off boutique funding permanently, and she could figure out her own finances for the first time ever. She signed. 2 pages notarized detailing everything. It's in my safe deposit box now. I'm never using it for anything. I just wanted her to write it, to face what she did in black and white with her own signature. The boutique closed 3 weeks later. Not because of me, Norman kept funding it after Ellen guilted him. But the vendors got fed up waiting. 2 pulled their inventory. Without product, Juliana couldn't operate. She tried online-only sales but didn't have the customer base or work ethic. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents. 29 years old, childhood bedroom, no business, no fiancé, and a signed confession in my possession. Frederick blocked her within a week of her leaving Italy. He had a girlfriend the entire time who saw Juliana's vineyard photo on Instagram and confronted him. That situation imploded separately from me. I didn't orchestrate it, just found it satisfying. So that's it, Reddit. I got my grandfather's watch, I got Bruno, I got 25,000 going toward a bigger apartment with a backyard. And I got a signed statement from my ex admitting she treated me like garbage. Some might think I went too far, but Juliana spent 3 years making me feel like I wasn't enough. Her whole family did. They saw someone beneath them, someone disposable. I wanted them to understand I wasn't disposable, that actions have consequences even when daddy has money. I wanted Juliana to remember she tried to destroy someone, and he destroyed her right back. Was it petty? Absolutely. Do I regret it? Not 1 second. Bruno wants dinner. So I'm going to feed my dog in my apartment that I own, wearing my grandfather's watch, with 25,000 in my account. Thanks for following along, Reddit/story. Reaction. Voicemail 73. This man cataloged 112 voicemails and knew exactly which one contained the ammunition he needed. Juliana was leaving desperate voice messages thinking she was begging for reconciliation. She was actually dictating her own exposure. Every confession about daddy covering her losses, every vendor name, every threat to cut her off. She handed him the entire playbook while crying into her phone in a Tuscan bathroom. The man who shuffles boxes just outmaneuvered a business owner using nothing but patience and an iPhone. Norman hand-delivering the watch in a parking garage with that disgusted look is poetic cinema. 3 years of, when are you getting a real job? And now he's doing handoffs like a hostage negotiator because his daughter fumbled so catastrophically. And the signed statement, Ian doesn't need it for anything legal. He just wanted her to sit down and write out every terrible thing she did with her own hand and watch a notary stamp it official. That's not about evidence. That's about forcing someone who's never faced consequences to produce a physical document of their own awfulness and sign their name to it. Frederick had a girlfriend the whole time. Juliana left her loyal, property-owning, debt-free fiancé for a man who was also cheating. She traded real stability for a guy whose entire personality was standing in his brother's vineyard and lying.